Your child comes home and shows you his notebook with a remark in red ink. It says, "Improve your handwriting." And no matter how much your child puts in, these remarks keep coming back the same. Hello, this is Maneesha Rajpal, and you are listening to Inner Architecture. I am an inner architecture coach, a certified handwriting analyst, a grapho-analytical therapist, and a counseling psychologist. In this space, we talk about the human mind, how behavior shapes, how the neurology impacts and gets impacted. In a nutshell, we dive deep into the triad of psychology, neurology, and behavior. And further, we explore how small, structured changes can lead to deep transformations. Today's episode is especially for parents, but if you are a teacher, a counselor, or someone curious about human development, this will still speak to you. Now, let me ask you something. Has your child ever come home with a notebook that has a remark written in red ink that says, "Improve your handwriting"? Or maybe you have heard yourself saying that your child knows the answer, but when it comes to writing in answer sheets, he loses marks because the handwriting is not legible. And if this sounds familiar, you are not alone. We often underestimate handwriting. You would often hear people saying, "Who even writes these days? Everything is digital now. Why bother for handwriting?" Whereas the truth is that the schools that have switched to tablets and typing have now returned to handwriting in notebooks. But why did that happen? Because handwriting is not just about writing. It is about how the brain organizes thought. No matter what subject the child studies, maths, science, history, languages, handwriting remains the center of academic expression. Now imagine this. A child between 6th and 8th standard is expected to write 3,000 to 4,000 words in just 3 hours of a school exam. By the last 30 minutes, the child's mind is fatigued, and more than that, the hand is tired. And that shows in the answer sheet because the handwriting begins to collapse. And as the handwriting collapses, it starts to show up in marks too. We need to understand that it is not the child that he doesn't know the answer. Rather, the fact is that the teacher cannot read it clearly. This doesn't just hurt the child but the parent too. So, illegible handwriting is not just about neat classwork but penetrates deeper. Unfortunately, nobody explains what actually needs to improve in handwriting. I repeat, nobody explains what actually needs to improve and how to improve scientifically. With best intention, the teacher writes, "Improve your handwriting" in the notebook, and parents repeat, "Why can't you write properly?" But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most teachers have never been trained in handwriting science. They have never been taught how handwriting develops neurologically, or which stroke in a letter formation will actually cause poor social adjustment in an individual. And yet, they are expected to correct it. So the child is stuck between expectations and no clear guidance. Now, let me clarify something very important. As a handwriting expert, there is no good or bad handwriting. There is only legible and illegible handwriting. And legibility depends on 3 measurable factors. The first is letter consistency. Today, take your child's notebook and look at one letter. For example, small case G or T, and observe. Is the child forming that letter the same way every time? Or does the formation of that letter vary from word to word? If you have decided to observe the letter T, then look across at least 2 pages to see how the child is making the letter T. Is the stem similar in height across all the words? Where is the crossbar placed? Is it placed every time at the same location? Or sometimes it's more on the left, sometimes it's more on the right, sometimes it's crossed in between? Is the crossbar fixed at the place of a stem, or is it fluctuating? Is it going up on the stem, or is it sometimes coming down? So, if the child is showing variation in writing a single letter, that means something. If you have observed that the formation keeps changing, it usually means that the brain does not yet have a stable image of that letter in the child's mind. And when the image is unstable, the output becomes unclear. The second factor for legibility is zones of handwriting. English handwriting has 3 zones: the middle zone, the upper zone, and the lower zone. Think of handwriting like a building. The middle zone is the ground floor, the upper zone is the first floor, the lower zone is the basement. For handwriting to be considered legible, especially for a school student, the proportions of letter zones should be consistent. It must have upper zone letters and lower zone letters at usually twice the height of middle zone letters. Therefore, the letter T should be twice the height of letter O, or the letter G should be double the size of letter A. When this proportion is disturbed, the writing begins to crowd, cramp, and overlap. The third factor for legibility is spacing. Spacing doesn't need to be perfect, but it does need to be consistent. Because when spacing fluctuates, the eyes struggle to track, and the same writing is tiring for the teacher's eyes to read. Now, let us talk about why this really matters. Because a small drop in marks definitely impacts the rank in the class. On top of that, it quietly affects the child's confidence and how the child perceives himself as intelligent or not. So, what can you do starting today? Encourage consistent spacing. Ensure zone proportions are clear. And ask your child to form each letter the same way every time. These are not shortcuts, these are foundations. So the next time your child gets a remark, improve your handwriting. Look for features of legibility that are consistency, zones, and spacing. Being a handwriting analyst, let me tell you that this is just a surface level of understanding of this remark. In the next episode, I am going to explore what those repeated corrections quietly cost a child. Not in marks, not in notebooks, but in self-confidence, in self-belief, and in how safe a child feels while expressing themselves. Until next time, stay observant, stay curious, and stay kind to the process. This is Maneesha Rajpal, and you have been listening to Inner Architecture.